Let's talk about something incredibly personal. What if, in our final moments, the one making the choice for us isn't a loved one, but an algorithm? We're talking about AI surrogates. These are systems designed to make end-of-life decisions for people who can no longer speak for themselves. This is, without a doubt, one of the most profound and ethically charged frontiers in all of artificial intelligence. So, let's dive in.
Just think about that question. It's something most of us hope we never have to face. When a loved one is incapacitated, someone has to step up and make an impossible choice, based on what they think that person would have wanted. It is an unbelievably heavy burden, guided by love, by memory, and, let's be honest, often by a whole lot of uncertainty. And this is where the real tension is, right? A human surrogate, a spouse, a child. They rely on memory, on empathy, and sometimes on just painful guesswork. The proposed AI surrogate, on the other hand, operates on a totally different foundation. It's all about vast amounts of data, finding statistical patterns, and making a prediction. The idea is to replace that moral guesswork with data-driven accuracy. But can an algorithm really capture what it means to make such a human choice?
Now, you might be asking, why would we even think about handing this job over to an AI? Well, to understand that, we first have to get real about how flawed our current human-only system can actually be.
Think about this for a second. We trust our loved ones to make the right call for us, and yet when researchers look at the data, the accuracy of human surrogates in guessing what a patient actually wants, well, it rarely gets better than this, 68%. Let that sink in. That means nearly a third of the time the decision being made is not what the person would have wanted.
So why is that error rate so high? It's because when you're under that kind of immense emotional stress, it is incredibly difficult to separate a loved one's true wishes from our own hopes and fears. We project. We remember things selectively. This isn't a failure of love. It's a fundamental, messy human challenge. And this is the problem that AI surrogates are supposedly designed to solve.
Okay, so just as we see this potential technological solution on the horizon, we run headfirst into a massive, massive problem. The technology itself has a kind of hidden, inherited flaw.
So here's the deal. AI learns from data, but data isn't some pure objective thing. It's a mirror. It's a reflection of our world, with all of its existing biases and inequities included. So, when an AI is trained on decades of historical medical records, it doesn't just learn medicine. It also learns all of the systemic biases that are baked right into our healthcare system. In this chart, it just lays the problem bare. This shows real-world data on Do Not Resuscitate Orders, or DNRs. What you see is that historically, Black and Hispanic patients are less likely to have DNRs. Now, there are a ton of reasons for this, including different cultural values and, frankly, a deep-seated and historically justified mistrust of the medical system. An AI trained on this data would learn a very simple but incredibly dangerous rule. If a patient is Black, they're probably less likely to want a DNR. There's a quote from the research that it hits the nail on the head. Consistency without fairness is merely automation of inequity. If all an AI does is take biased patterns and apply them more consistently, it isn't creating a better system, it's just making biased decisions faster and more efficiently.
So this forces us to stop and ask a much, much harder question. If we want to avoid just automating inequity, we have to build a fair AI. But what does fair actually mean? And it turns out that is not a technical question. It's a deeply philosophical one.
Okay, so one common technical definition of fairness is this idea of demographic parity. Basically, it means an AI should recommend something, like a DNR, at the exact same rate for every single group. On the surface, that sounds perfectly fair, right? A totally level playing field. But here's the paradox. Forcing the outcomes to be statistically equal can actually be a form of unfairness. It risks what the source material calls moral homogenization. You're essentially erasing authentic, real cultural differences in how people view the end of life, all just to make the numbers match up. Fairness isn't just about making everyone the same.
To get this right, we have to think about much richer, more human forms of fairness, like relational fairness. That means seeing the patient as part of a family and a community, not just an isolated data point. We need temporal fairness, because a person's wishes aren't static. They can change as their illness progresses. And finally, there's procedural fairness. The process itself has to be transparent, and people need to have the right to question and even override the machine.
And just when you think it couldn't get more complex, it does. All of these ethical debates are happening inside of a very specific cultural bubble, because most AI ethics are designed from a single, Western-centric point of view.
This is where it gets really fascinating. In the West, we tend to prize individual autonomy above all else. The AI's job is to figure out what I want, but that is not a universal value. In a Confucian tradition, the focus is on relational harmony. The AI should help the family decide together. In Islamic ethics, it's about consultation and divine trust. And for many indigenous communities, it's about collective sovereignty. The community must control its own data. A one-size-fits-all model of fairness just completely falls apart.
So, is this just an unsolvable mess? Well, not exactly. The research actually points to a path forward, and it's one that's focused not on perfecting the algorithm, but on designing the entire system for human dignity.
The solution isn't a better algorithm, it's what's called ethical infrastructure. This means building in human safeguards at every step. Things like dynamic consent, so a patient's choices aren't frozen in time. It absolutely requires constant human oversight from doctors and ethics committees. It means running regular fairness audits to actively hunt for bias. And crucially, it demands something called dialogic explainability, which means the AI can't just spit out an answer. It has to explain why in a way that opens up a human conversation rather than shutting it down.
And this really gets to the core of it all. The proper role for AI in a space this sensitive is not to automate ethics. It's not to make the decision for us. It's to augment our own moral deliberation, to be a tool that helps families and doctors have a more informed, a more compassionate, and a more thoughtful conversation. At the end of the day, this is the most important takeaway. We have to shift our thinking completely. Fairness isn't just a technical setting in the code that we can tweak until the numbers look right. In this deeply human context, fairness is an act of care. It's a commitment to listening, to respecting difference, and to honoring a person's entire story. So, as we stand here at this incredible technological crossroads, the ultimate challenge isn't just about making our AI smarter. It's about figuring out how to build systems that have a kind of wisdom, systems that are humble, context-aware, and that ultimately serve our shared humanity. The real question is, are we ready for that challenge?